Welcome to Comfort Crime with Lindsay Sanchez, a cozy mystery podcast where no actual crimes have been committed. Today, we'll continue Murder on Maple Mountain, a cozy mystery with an amateur sleuth, a second chance romance, and a killer who won't stop until they finish what was started 12 years ago. If this is your first time here, welcome, and please start with Episode 1, Chapter 1, or feel free to start with Season 1, which is the prequel short story Death at Dogwood Lake. There is a link to both in the show notes. For everyone else, we'll continue today to Chapter 16, but first, an update. Can you believe it? We are in the home stretch. Murder on Maple Mountain is almost to the climax, and I am getting all the feels. We've got about 8 more chapters to go before we wrap up Season 2, and I might surprise you with a few 2-for-1 episodes along the way, which means in just a few short weeks, we could be saying goodbye to Maple Mountain. But only temporarily, because I have a lot more planned for Georgia and her friends in Dogwood. Up next, after we close the book on this season, we'll take a quick summer break to recharge and prepare the next deliciously devious mystery for you. But we'll still keep in touch with the newsletter with behind-the-scenes peeks for Season 3. I'm going to need your help choosing covers, voting on story elements, and all sorts of interactive goodness as we gear up for a new season in the fall. But that's a ways away, so for now, let's continue Murder on Maple Mountain. Last time, the police zeroed in on Sean, a man Georgia's sure is innocent. So she does something no sensible person would. She knocks on his door, alone, demanding answers. Instead of finding the charming young man she'd come to know, she finds a grieving nephew, a ghost from the past, and that they were no closer to finding the killer than they were before she found Doug Barlow in the hot tub. Murder on Maple Mountain, Chapter 16. What are you doing here? Georgia ripped her arm out of Erik's grasp, backing away toward the sliding glass door. Please listen. He put his hands up. He wasn't stopping her from leaving, but something in his voice, desperation, made her stay. What is it? Georgia folded her arms across her chest to calm her thumping heart and hide her heavy breath. He had scared her more than she'd like to admit. She didn't buy Sean's theory that Erik was the killer, or that Rose was in on it. There was no proof that Erik had Ivy's letter, or that it had anything to do with him. Sneaking around the front of Frank's house didn't necessarily mean he was the one who'd broken the back window. It wasn't enough to prosecute a man, not when he'd stopped at a locked door. But that didn't mean Georgia wanted to be alone with him, where a dead man was just found. In 20 seconds, Jake's going to come out those doors, because he's a good friend, because he's worried about you. Because on some level, he's always been in love with you. The longer you're out here, the more worried he'll get. Georgia, whatever happens, he can't see me. He can't know I'm here. Why me? She stayed with him in the shadows, on the edge of the light from the sliding glass door, one step away from the sightline of anyone who was in the kitchen or living room. Why not talk to Jake or Officer Briggs? She pretended like Erik hadn't just casually assumed that her lifelong crush had also always been in love with her. But he'd said those words on purpose. They were a reminder of their shared past. He knew her and Jake. They were all connected to the last time someone was found face down in Dogwood Lake. And the more Georgia dug, the more she suspected that whatever was happening on this mountain was connected to the nurseries, Tom's death, and how the city of Dogwood had never been the same. Like I said, he took a step closer. You're the only one who's trying to protect Rose. The police? We both know they're only stationing Stuart there to get him out of the way and placate you. Erik nodded toward the sliding glass door behind Georgia. Tell Jake you need a minute out here alone. Tell him whatever you have to get him to go back inside without you. She looked over her shoulder. Jake's broad outline blocked the light from the kitchen, his growing shadow landing on the snowy deck. Just on time, exactly as Erik had predicted. The sliding glass door squeaked as metal rubbed against metal. Jake stepped outside. Georgia? His voice was too normal, a forced calm carrying her name, burying the edge of panic beneath the question. Erik backed into the corner, hiding more deeply in the shadows. Jake. Georgia stepped into the ring of light. I didn't mean to take so long. I'm just thinking. I'll be in a minute. You're here. He came forward with relief written all over his face, his arms up like he was going to put them around her in a big bear hug. He stopped mid-step and let his arms drop. He'd either decided he didn't want to hug Georgia after all, or he was second-guessing if she wanted him to. Relief and disappointment battled for dominance, whipping Georgia from the fear she'd felt with Erik around a different emotional roller coaster. After a day like today, she needed a hug. There was no doubt about that, but she wasn't sure she wanted to melt into Jake's arms in front of Erik. And if the goal was to get Jake to go inside without her, hugging him wouldn't get that job done. What did Sean say? Jake shoved his hands awkwardly into his jeans pockets. He doesn't know anything. He thinks Erik is involved and that Rose helped kill Ivy. That's crazy. Jake rocked on his feet, back and forth between his toes and heels, like he was trying to keep warm with as little movement as possible. That's what I said, she agreed. Hey, her eyes darted to Erik in the corner. Can I have just one more minute out here? Alone? He raised an eyebrow. I'm just trying to decide what to say to Sienna when she calls. Sounds like Officer Brooks doesn't want her to know about Doug Barlow. Not yet. He should be the one to tell her anyway, but I don't want to lie. And I don't know what to tell my dad or Nikki. I haven't even talked to Nikki in, well, a long time. Tears formed unbidden, tingling like 1,000 tiny pinpricks poking her eyes at just the mention of her family. I miss them. It was true. True enough to make Jake swallow hard, nod, and go back inside. As he closed the door behind him, he looked back one last time. Take your time, he said. I'll be right here, but can you do me a favor? Can you stay where I can see you? Sure. She nodded, still swallowing her tears. I'll stay right here. A guy was murdered here today. The memory sent a chill down Georgia's spine. She thought about Erik in the shadows and Doug Barlow in the hot tub. He wasn't there anymore. He didn't have to be. In her mind, he'd always be there, face down in the bubbles. Jake closed the door. Georgia turned her back to the glass so Jake could see her, but not her mouth. He wouldn't be able to tell she was talking. Thank you. Erik stayed in the corner, shrouded in shadows. You're a good actor. I wish it had been an act. She wiped at her eyes. As soon as she'd said her little brother's name, the tears had been real. How long had it been since she'd called him? Since she'd actually spoken to him? How long had it been since she'd seen her parents? What now? I can't tell you everything, but I've been keeping an eye on this mountain, on Rose. I always have, even when it seemed like I abandoned her up here. I was watching, and now she's in danger, real danger. Why? Who's trying to hurt her? If I knew, I wouldn't be in your shadows. I'd be out there chasing them. But for now, no one can know I'm here. I need your help. I need you to watch Rose. She'll try and sneak away from Officer Stewart. The way he's sleeping on the job, she'll succeed. She won't talk to me. She's mad. You know how she gets. It doesn't matter. Just watch her. Sean thinks the police can't be trusted. Georgia stayed focused on the ice crystals at her feet. He showed them the video of you breaking into Frank's. He thinks you're the killer, but they're not pursuing you, so he thinks they're dirty. Erik cursed under his breath. I thought Frank's camera was a bluff. I should have known he'd get into tech, the old devil. Erik's voice was light, admiring. This complicates things. He took a step forward, the tips of his boots nearly touching the light. What I'm about to tell you, you can't tell a single soul. Not Lisa, not Sienna, definitely not Jake. I'm risking my life, your life, by telling you this. Anyone you tell will be in danger too. Do you understand? Yes. Cold prickled Georgia's hands, her fingers tingling. She put them back in her coat pocket. I don't work for Doug Barlow, he whispered. I mean, I did, but not really. The Pineville police force recruited me while I was serving time. I was uniquely positioned to help them uncover Doug Barlow, help them pin something on him, something they've been trying to do for decades, but a few months in, we realized what you must have realized tonight. Doug Barlow isn't the problem, or he wouldn't be the one that ended up in your hot tub. Who's the problem? I've been asking myself that for the better part of a decade. The only thing I know for sure is that Doug Barlow was the puppet. Someone else is pulling the strings. The police think it's Sean, Georgia confessed. That's why they're getting Officer Stewart out of the way, having him watch Rose. That makes sense. No, it doesn't. Georgia shook her head, then froze. As far as Jake was concerned, she was out here alone, talking to ghosts. She needed to keep it that way. I've known Sean for all of 3 days, and I know it's not him. How can the police not see that? He has no reason to kill Rose? Sean and Erik were so busy pointing at each other, both certain that the other was the killer. It was a distraction, smoke and mirrors. If the killer could get the innocent suspecting their own, they could sneak away with no one the wiser, leaving only breadcrumbs of evidence. And if the suspicion was strong enough, eventually an innocent man could go to prison for the sins of another, and Dogwood would never truly be safe again. What were you doing at Frank's? If Georgia was going to get frostbite out here, she might as well get as much information as she could. And where were you today, when Doug was killed? If I wanted Doug Barlow dead, he already would have been, and his body wouldn't have been found in a hot tub. Erik's voice was low, menacing. It wouldn't have been found at all. It didn't exactly answer her question, but she believed him. He hadn't killed Doug Barlow, and, as far as she could tell, he hadn't come here for any other reason than to help his mom. But if she were going to trust him, take his word at face value, she needed more information. Just because she couldn't see a motive didn't mean he didn't have one. What were you doing at Frank's? Looking for the letter, same as you. There's a reason Ivy sent it to Frank's. You think she doesn't trust Sean. That's why you're so sure he's trouble. Why else would she send it to Frank's house instead of her own? He had a point. Ivy had been up to something. She'd had April come to town, sent mail to Frank's address, and kept searching for something when everyone else had stopped. Why did Rose stop going after Doug Barlow? Because I asked her to. He hung his head. I was still working there, to her knowledge. It wasn't hard to convince her that anything she found might hurt me. She was trying to protect you. Sean had been right. Rose had been making choices based on Erik. But that didn't mean she'd chosen murder. She and Ivy were spooking the targets, making it harder for me to get deeper in the organization. No one was going to trust me if my mom was so publicly tearing into them. What's in the letter? If I knew that, I wouldn't have been lurking at Frank's. Erik edged out of the corner, navigating the darkest shadows to the edge of the deck by the hot tub. Keep her safe. He jumped over the railing and landed with a thud in the snow below. Georgia went inside as his footsteps faded. We've got to talk to Rose. She joined Jake and Lisa at the table. She's the only one who might know what's in that letter. Grudge be darned, Georgia was going to have to convince Rose to talk to her. The sooner the better, for everyone's safety. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a mystery-loving friend, or consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast player. Most of all, thank you so much for being here today. I loved it, and I'm already excited for next week.